Good morning. I want to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to the annual meeting of the Hunterdon County Chamber of Commerce. I want to welcome one and all. And if those that I don't know, my name is Chris Phelan. I'm the president of the Hunterdon County Chamber of Commerce. And on behalf of our board, on behalf of Jeffrey Weinstein, the chairman of our board, who is going to be speaking after our speaker, we really want to thank everyone and really thank everyone for all of your ongoing support. It has truly been a challenging year for many and for our business community here in Hunterdon. And we really thank the outpouring of support and engagement amongst our chamber membership and the broader business community as well. So before I introduce our speaker, I'd like to just thank some of the organizations that have sponsored today's event and program, starting out by thanking our presenting sponsor, BKC Certified Public Accountants. I want to thank Ed Kowicki, Joe Carducci, I believe they're on the call. BKC is, again, an incredible organization supporting so many other causes and a great employer here in Hunterdon County. So we thank them for their ongoing support of this program and many other initiatives of the Chamber. I want to thank Hunterdon Healthcare. We've got folks on from Hunterdon Healthcare today, including Jeffrey Weinstein and Kim Bland, I see. So Hunterdon Healthcare has truly risen to that challenge over the last year and continues to do so much to help protect and treat those in Hunterdon that have been impacted by COVID-19. They have risen to the occasion. We can't thank enough the doctors, the frontline workers, all the medical staff, the nurses, the administration. We really thank them for what they have done and what they continue to do to keep our community safe, and we thank them as a great partner of the Hunterdon County Chamber. I want to thank our supporting sponsors, Diamond Nation, Gebhardt and Kiefer Law Offices, Health Quest, and Prevention Resources. So we thank them for all that they do for our community and their support. Also want to thank our contributing sponsors, the Wolverton Inn, along with Bridgewater Acura and ShopRite of Hunterdon County. They are all great organizations and, again, do so much to help our community and help organizations make Hunterdon County a great place. So I, at this time, would like to introduce our keynote speaker and really want to thank him for taking time to be with us. Tom Bracken became the New Jersey Chamber of Commerce President and CEO in February of 2011. Taking the reins of the state's business advocacy organization as it celebrated its 100th year. Prior to becoming president, Tom served as chairman of the New Jersey Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors from 2005 to 2007, and has been involved with the chamber for over 4 decades. Prior to taking the reins of the New Jersey Chamber, Tom spent 40 years in the banking and financial services industry, serving as president of Tri-State Capital Bank's New Jersey operations, and then later as president and CEO of Sun Bank Corp. He's the former chairman of the Economic Development Corporation of Trenton and the New Jersey Bankers Association, and has sat on many statewide boards and continues to serve in that capacity. I must say, Tom has done a great job leading the state's business community during the very challenging year that we've all experienced. I've had the pleasure of serving with Tom on the state chamber board for a number of years when we first met, and I was president of the New Jersey Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives. And just for about every week now, since the start of this pandemic, I have been on Zoom calls with Tom and other chamber leaders and business leaders throughout the state as we continue to advocate and push our business community towards a recovery. So please join me in welcoming Tom Bracken. Thank you, Tom, so much for being with us. And I'm going to turn the call over to you. Take care.
He's always supported us. And again, we look forward to that great partnership continuing as we move forward, because the future of New Jersey is at stake and there's a lot at risk, and we need everybody we can to pull together. And I think with Chris as part of that team, we're optimistic about what's going to happen. But let me just talk a little bit about where New Jersey's been, where we are, and where I think we're going, or maybe better said, where I think we could go if we could get a few things done. New Jersey, as you probably know, a little over a year ago was fat and happy. Economy was great. Everything was going fine. Directionally, we were moving ahead.
At least the main speaker is Bracken. He speaks better.
Yes, I am. So that's a good picture of me, by the way. I like that. The economy was moving forward. Everything was fine. I think everybody was looking forward to even bigger and better times. And then all of a sudden, everything came to an absolute screeching halt with the pandemic. The governor shut everything down, justifiably so. I think in hindsight, what he did was appropriate. The tenure of that and the length of that maybe is in question, but what he did at the time was something that I think he had to do. And that was the beginning of a year where we have all suffered economically, and we need to make some changes. But I think the one thing I would say about what the governor did as he attacked the medical crisis in New Jersey was he was very straightforward. He was very decisive. And I think, quite frankly, what he did helped mute a little bit the impact of the pandemic in New Jersey. We were one of the hardest hit states. We came out of it in the first go around faster than most states. And I do give him a lot of credit for his leadership on the medical crisis. And he's continuing to show that leadership on the medical side. But as we move forward, we have to realize that there was not only just a medical crisis that we were facing, there was an economic crisis that had been created. And the economic crisis was created by the fact that businesses were shut down. Many businesses went out of business. I think by any count today, the number is about a third of the small businesses in the state have closed. Or in the restaurant industry, that number might even be higher. So we've had a lot of economic devastation in our state, and it really hasn't come back that strongly yet, although I think it's starting to right now. But the problem is that the economic crisis created an unemployment rate in New Jersey that led the nation at one point. At one point in time, we had well over 1 million residents unemployed out of a potential workforce of about 4 million. That's a staggering number. And we had many businesses that were laying people off and underemploying people, cutting back hours, cutting back benefits. It was just a very difficult time. And I'm sure many of you on this call went through that and maybe are continuing to experience that. And we're starting to slowly come out of that, but we need to come out of that faster. So where we were is where we were. It's history, it's behind us. I think what we have to look forward to right now is where we are and where we are going and where we could be. And that'll be what the bulk of my remarks are about today. I would tell you that from the very beginning of this pandemic, my organization, the State Chamber, has focused on three things that we thought were absolutely imperative for the state to address to help soften and allow for companies to survive as we went through the most difficult parts of the pandemic. One was to continue to look at the medical numbers and as dictated by the medical numbers, start to reopen the economy regionally based on the medical numbers in those regions, as opposed to doing it on a one-size-fits-all basis, because different parts of the state were impacted differently. And we didn't think it was the right thing to do to penalize everybody if there were areas that were very poorly demographic by the medical numbers and penalize the rest of the state because of that. So we pushed very hard for regional openings based on the medical metrics. To date, we've had no success with that concept, but we continue to pursue that. But that's something that we talked about with the governor's office from day one. Secondly, was the issue of liability protection. That there was a possibility because of the COVID, people contracting COVID, that they would blame retail stores, they would blame their employers for getting the virus in one of those physical facilities. And there was the potential for a lot of frivolous lawsuits popping up stemming from that kind of an approach. We wanted to pursue having businesses, hospitals, the healthcare industry, schools, anybody who was involved with housing people, employees, and customers to have liability against that if they met certain CDC protective measures. And we proposed that both at a federal level and at the state level. And again, a lot of time and effort has gone into that, but we've had very little traction on either of those issues, state or federal. And it's still an issue that's hanging out there, although I think a lot of the lawsuits that we thought were going to happen have not yet happened, which we're fortunate to experience, but still the potential is there for that. So the limited liability protection that we were proposing has really not been received that well by the state or the federal legislators, and that's really a shame because that would have given people, I think, a better peace of mind as they were pursuing their business in a more aggressive way. And thirdly, and most importantly, I think the thing that we were pursuing was the availability of working capital for businesses. As you all know, no business can survive without working capital. You need capital to survive in good times and in bad times, even more so in bad times. And we were going through not only bad times, but historic bad times. And the availability of capital was not there. We knew a lot of people who own businesses were using up their personal capital, using up the equity in their homes, their credit cards, everything they could possibly do to stay alive. And our point was that this is a time for the government to step up and provide capital either in the form of grants or loans to anybody who qualifies, and not do it the way the state did it, which was to do it with different tranches of grants that were about 10 or 20 times oversubscribed every time they were proposed, which meant that every time the state came out with a $20 million grant program for businesses for survival money, there were, for everybody that got, there were probably 20 customers, 20 businesses that did not get. And that whole mentality of leading people at the curb just enhanced all the frustration that was out there. And our proposal was just bite the bullet, create a big fund of money that the state can put forward to help businesses to survive through the recovery period until we get to some kind of new normalcy. And we thought that was a very good approach that would also supplement what the federal government was doing with the PPP loans, the EIDL loans that came out of the SBA, and a few other lending facilities. But again, to date, that's not happened. There is a minor proposal in the state budget to put something like that together. But again, it's not enough money, and it doesn't kick in until the new budget, which is July 1st, which is in my estimation too little, too late. There's also some legislation that's flowing through the legislature right now that would provide a $300 million pot of money to do a similar, to perform a similar function to the one I just proposed. Again, I think that's a good start, but it's a little light. We have been proposing somewhere in the $500 to $600 million range, but again, it's not been received by the state administration of our state right now, and that's really a shame because I know companies are still suffering from a working capital standpoint, and that issue needs to be addressed, and needs to be addressed very aggressively. So those are things that we've been pushing for from the beginning. I will tell you and be very honest about it that none of those three things have been really enhanced and embraced by the administration or the legislature to any meaningful degree. And it's a shame because I think we could be a little better economically if 1, 2, or 3 of them would be embraced, but to date, none of them have been. So we have not given up. One of the ways we decided to attack all this economic distress in New Jersey was to bring together all of the chambers of commerce around the state into an alliance that we had previously that worked fairly well in an organization called Chambers United. But this organization we brought together during the pandemic, the Chamber Alliance, really has brought in almost every significant chamber of commerce around the state, somewhere in the 50 to 60 number. We have weekly meetings. We talk about issues. We talk about issues that are not only statewide issues, but issues that are localized for each of the different chambers, and we try to work together to help each other and help the state in general. We are now starting to propose legislation. We are putting together a small working group, small working policy group to propose pro-business legislation as we are starting to come out of the pandemic. Chris is one of the people on that small group, and I thank Chris for his participation because I know he will be a great contributor to that group. And we are going to start to be a little bit more aggressive with our asks of the legislature to start to move our economy forward faster, because we have to. We are at a point now in our economy where if we don't do something fairly dramatically, the future of the state, I think, is going to be in for a long lull and be sort of a mediocre economic state, when in fact our state, because of the demographics, should be one of the leaders in the country economically, and we are just not there yet. So our group is working very hard to pull together. It's taken a while for the group to really gel, but I think we've gotten to that point. We've had some very constructive meetings over the last couple of months, and we have also sent a collective letter to the legislature asking for certain things and congratulating the legislature for a lot of the pro-business work that they've been doing for the last few months. There's a lot of pro-business bills flowing through the legislature right now. And, you know, it's not only appropriate to criticize legislators for not doing what we think is appropriate, it's also good to praise the legislators when they do something well. And that's what we did with the first collective letter that we sent to that group of legislators, the Assembly and the Senators. So we are, again, having a group that's gelling and working together. And I think over time it's going to be to the collective benefit of the business community for this group to be much more proactive, and that is our intent. And we're working very diligently to get to the point of being more aggressive. So all of that is leading to what is happening in the state. You know, we have a state that our medical numbers the first time around were some of the worst. They came back fast. I think because of the governor's work, the second tranche of the COVID, the resurgence, has not been as bad as some other states. And right now, we're at a point where the numbers started to get a lot better. Recently, they've worsened a little bit. But I think even though the numbers in total are worse, the severity of the cases seem to be less because of the hospitalization numbers that are a lot lower than were in place the first tranche of this medical pandemic. The governor, during this time, as you all are aware, has started to loosen the reins on our economy. Now there is indoor capacities for dining and retail stores of 50%. We were very pleased yesterday that the governor, after we had been working with the administration for several weeks, opened up outdoor capacities to 200. It used to be 50 people, now it's 200. The importance of that for many organizations, and possibly many on this call, now can have outdoor events like golf outings, open houses, other things that they were planning on doing at the old 50-person capacity. That would have been very difficult, if not impossible. 200 people now makes it, most of those things very doable, and that's music to a lot of people's ears. And I sent a note to the governor's office yesterday thanking them for that very quick turnaround. And the fact that they did it quickly, to me, is a very, very important sign that they're starting to listen to the business community. And as I said before, a lot of the things we've said in the past have not been embraced. This was embraced, and it was embraced quickly. So that to me is a very encouraging sign. So, you know, right now, I think my position is I am cautiously optimistic about where the state is going, and I say that for several reasons. Number one, the stimulus packages that the federal government has proposed, you know, they have had some problems with the implementation of some of those packages. But the packages themselves, once you got through the kinks in some of the applications, they have been very effective. The PPP loans have provided a lot of money to a lot of companies in New Jersey. There's a PPP program right now that is set to expire tomorrow, but the House of Representatives and the Senate have both passed legislation to extend that until May 31st. And I would be very surprised if today the president does not sign that to extend it. He's already said he would, and I'm really surprised that he hasn't already signed it. But that will extend the PPP program for another month or 60 days and allow people more access to the funds that are available. And a lot of organizations like chambers of commerce do have access to that, and it's helped many of those organizations who heretofore had not been able to access the PPP loans. So the stimulus programs have been very positive. The new stimulus program that just was passed, the American Rescue Plan, is providing a lot of money to many organizations that were not provided funding before. The state and local governments are going to get money. The state of New Jersey is going to get nearly $10 billion of money, about $6.5 billion to the state, and the balance to local municipalities, which will be dramatically needed and will help to pay for a lot of the COVID expenses that have been paid by the taxpayers without federal assistance. And that'll be, I think, a great relief to many people. The key to that, obviously, is how that money is used. And the organization that I talked about, our Chamber Alliance, will be talking probably this Thursday when we have our next meeting about some potential uses of that money. That's very, very important to realize that the state of New Jersey a year ago was supposedly in such dire straits that we needed to borrow $4 billion through the bond markets to make ends meet. Now, a year later, we're sitting with an economy that is better than they anticipated, which is generating about $4 billion of surplus that the state is sitting on, and also about to receive $6 billion from the federal government. We're going to have $10 billion of money that we did not have, nobody anticipated a year ago, or at least they say they didn't anticipate a year ago. But we have to use that money expeditiously and very judiciously to make sure that we use the money for strategic things and not for frivolous things. And you all know in the state of New Jersey, dealing with any government entity, money is not necessarily something that is always spent wisely. This money has to be spent wisely because it's significant, and we have some major issues that we need to address. And we'll be pushing some issues that we think are the most prominent on that list, hopefully sometime in the next week or two. So that money is very important to the state. That's going to give me some optimism about the future because it gives the state, both the state and local governments, some breathing room. Also, as I said, the PPP is being extended. That gives the availability of working capital to companies for an extended period of time. And I know there's a need out there for more working capital. That's going to be available for at least through May 31st, and that's a positive. There's another program that the SBA has called the EIDL program, which is Economic Industry Distress Loans, and they have just increased the size of that loan from 150,000 to 500,000. Those are loans directly from the SBA. They're very user-friendly because they're very low interest and they're paid back over 30 years. So from a cash flow standpoint, they're much more easily absorbed. And those loans have also been extended and expanded. So the federal government's trying to provide the liquidity that I talked about before, and it's getting easier to access. And I hope people are fully educated on the availability of that money because, again, working capital is key to getting people to a point of normalcy. The outdoor capacity issue gave me tremendous encouragement because it gave me a signal that the administration is really listening to the pleas of business. And in the response I got, when I thanked them for that, they said, you know, we understood your concerns and we answered them. That's the first time we've had a very positive, quick response from the administration since the pandemic started. So again, I have to take some optimism away from that, and I am taking optimism away. Another thing that's starting to pop up that I think hopefully will happen that would be beneficial to our state is you all know that in the Tax Act of 2017, um, the SALT deductions, the ability to deduct the state and local taxes was eliminated, and it was limited to $10,000. In a high tax state like New Jersey, that put a very heavy economic burden on many citizens. Right now, that SALT deduction issue is being heavily debated for repealing. Um, the new Secretary of the Treasury, Janet Yellen, has said she's addressing that. She needs to understand it more, but she's receptive to looking at it. We have some very aggressive members of our Congress who are pushing for the elimination of that. Josh Gottheimer, Mikey Sherrill are two of them that are pushing hard, as is Tom Malinowski, and they're probably three of the people pushing as hard as anybody to get that eliminated. And that would be great news for New Jersey to get back the ability to deduct those taxes. So that's something that also is providing me some optimism going forward. Also, the president is going to be coming out with a very aggressive infrastructure package. Good news there is, the state of New Jersey's infrastructure is the key to our economy. It's the foundation of our economy. We need more help with infrastructure dollars, not only surface dollars, the roads, the bridges, and so forth, but infrastructure dollars that impact the water infrastructure, which is in bad shape. We need to have more broadband capacity, and that is an infrastructure issue that would be impacted by a new infrastructure bill. And Joe Biden is very, very pro infrastructure, and I think something like that is definitely going to be coming out in the near term. The problem with that is the paying of that could be through an increase in taxes. So we'll see what those tax increases are, but the last thing we need in our state is new taxes, either federal or state. But that seems to be one of the components of this new infrastructure bill. So good news is more money for infrastructure. Bad news is it might be paid for by new taxes. Not a great thing, but we'll see what happens there. So those are all things that are giving me some very prominent reasons to be cautiously optimistic. And I'm not saying this politically at all, but I think the Biden administration will be much more beneficial to our state going forward than would have been a second Trump administration, a Trump term, for a couple reasons. Joe Biden is very, very well known by the political leaders of our state, and nothing beats familiarity and congeniality in politics. So that will definitely be a bigger plus for New Jersey than would have been a second Trump administration. Again, the president's infrastructure bias is going to be helpful to us. His emphasis on stimulus is going to be helpful to us, and his receptivity to SALT will be helpful to us. So I think there's a lot of reasons why the Biden administration that's in place now will be much more helpful to our state than would have been a Trump administration, and that's overall a big positive. And then let's not lose track of the fact that we are in an election year. Anytime you're in an election year, economics always play a role in elections. And as I said before, the governor has done a great job addressing the medical crisis. So far, he has not really addressed the economic crisis as aggressively as we feel he should have. I think there's a wind change coming, and I think you'll start seeing a much more aggressive approach to the economic crisis as we get closer to election, because economics plays such a big role in every election. And people are still out of work, people are still on unemployment, companies are trying to recover. There's a lot at stake, and it can't go unaddressed if we are going to take our state from where we are back to some level of some level of prosperity. And let me just say one thing about the state of New Jersey. New Jersey, if you look at the demographics of our state, there is no state in the country that has better demographics than New Jersey. We have a very densely populated state, a very densely populated business state, a very wealthy state, a very well educated state. We have one of the best infrastructures, although it needs work in the country. We have tourism. We have a great diversity of industries in the state of New Jersey. And our location, there's no better location for business in our state because we're between the biggest metropolitan areas in the country. We have a great port. We have great airports. There's a lot of very positive things that are happening in New Jersey. And now with some of the recent stuff about the wind energy business, which New Jersey could be at the epicenter of, that's also going to be beneficial to the overall demographic attractiveness of our state. So New Jersey, it should be, and as I said earlier, one of the best economic states in the country. Where do we rank in most business polls about business competitiveness? Dead last. That is deplorable. There's no possible reason why New Jersey should rank 50 out of 50th of states with everything we have going for us. Just not even, it's mind-boggling where we are. That's why we have such upside potential. And with just some of the things I've talked about happening, we can start to move the state forward. And I think once we start to get momentum and people see how the state's going to benefit from the momentum, I think it'll start playing off itself and start expanding. This is a great opportunity for us. We are going through a metamorphosis economically. Every company in the state is looking at their business and transforming their business and really taking a very introspective look at what they need to do going forward. That's what the state of New Jersey needs to do economically. And a lot of the things we've been talking to the legislators and the administration about is how we can take what we have and transform it to something better and move forward faster. And one of the biggest components of that, which is something that we do not have in our state, and I can tell you almost every other state in the country has, is we do not have a what I call a three-legged stool in New Jersey. Three-legged stool is the legislature, the administration, and the business community. Right now, the legislature and the administration work very closely together, and the business community, although we try very hard to have an impact, we are not invited to the table. We need to be invited to the table. In fact, there's a piece of legislation floating around Trenton that would create a commission to do exactly that. And obviously we are fourscore behind having that done, because the better you communicate, the more you communicate, the more you understand what the needs are, and people can compromise on accomplishing those needs, the better off everybody is going to be. And it has to be balanced. The governor campaigned on and continues to run the state on that stronger and fair economy, a mantra that he has. He's created a very fair economy, but the strong part of the economy has yet to materialize. And what we are saying is, let's help balance it so we do have a stronger and fair economy. And we've got some very good ideas on how you can do that. That's why we want a seat at the table. That's why we created our Chamber Alliance. That's why we got people like Chris and the Hunterdon County and the other major chambers involved with this. And that's what we are attempting to do. So I honestly think that we have some optimism that we can look forward to. I think there's some things that are working their way through the legislature that will help us dramatically. I know we have a negative spike in some of the numbers right now, and your chairman, Jeffrey Weinstein, can probably articulate that better than I can. But hopefully that's an anomaly and something that'll start to fall off, especially as vaccinations pick up. We have about 20% of the state right now, maybe a little less than that, fully vaccinated. So we're not at herd immunity yet. But once we get to herd immunity, I think there's going to be a lot of different things opening up, and that'll be a big plus. So many things to look forward to. We just have to keep our eye on the ball. We just have to keep the pressure on the legislators, make sure they hear our voice, strengthen our voice, which we're trying to do. And if we do that, I think there could very, very well be a second half of this year, especially the fourth quarter, when we have some significant improvements economically in our state. So, Chris, I'll stop there. It's probably more than you wanted me to say, but I'll stop there and answer any questions anybody has.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tom. What we can do is, if anyone does have a question for Tom, you can either drop it in the chat or raise your hand. And I see one hand up right now, and I think it's Joanne. Joanne, if you could just unmute, if you would like, you could ask your question. Joanne Van Doren.
That was Victoria Davis.
Oh, I'm sorry.
With the question.
Thank you, Joanne. Victoria, go ahead there. You want me to read your question?
Yeah, I dropped it in the chat box, but that's okay. Is the Gateway Tunnel going to be part of the infrastructure package? And are there other infrastructure projects that will be beneficial to Hunterdon?
The Gateway Tunnel, it's definitely part of the infrastructure package. The new Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, has talked about that. Joe Biden's talked about that. I think, again, that's one of the benefits of having a Biden administration versus Trump. Trump was against the Gateway. Biden is absolutely for it. I think our ability to get the Gateway project done is dramatically improved with this administration, and it is definitely going to be part of that package. As far as Hunterdon County, one of the things that is happening in Washington right now is there used to be in the appropriations bill that comes out every year, there used to be the ability of every congressman to put earmarks in there, which is to throw every project that they wanted locally into the pot and hopefully get funding for some of those local projects. That earmark situation has been eliminated, and instead, each congressperson, right now just the House members, because the Senate hasn't approved this yet, that every House member has the ability to list 10 community projects within their district for consideration in the appropriations bill. And we are going to be working, our alliance is going to be working with our congressional delegation to make sure that every congressperson does put forth those 10 projects in their district. And so Hunterdon, with your Congress people, will have the ability to do that locally, probably by municipality, but definitely they'll have the opportunity to put forth pet projects that hopefully will get funded in this next appropriations bill.
Thank you, Tom.
Another question there. Thank you. This is from Ken Smith. How big of an effect do you expect marijuana legalization to have on the economy of the state?
It will have probably no effect this year because, the state of New Jersey has a great way of taking things and screwing them up, and they have made a mess of the final implementation of cannabis. But we're now getting to the point where it's starting to get together. The commission is now in place. Now they have to put together rules and regulations. So the 2022 budget probably will have no real beneficial impact. After that, I think they're talking somewhere, the numbers I've read are somewhere about $400 to $500 million of economic impact in New Jersey. I would think that might be light, but that's not insignificant. So those are the numbers that I've been hearing, but it's still a year away.
Are there any other questions? I don't see any in the chat box, but if you do have a question, just raise your hand, or you use the little device to raise your hand. I can't see every screen. Yeah, go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, I had a question. Tom, you mentioned the SALT deduction. New Jersey did a great thing by coming up with this business alternative income tax so that pass-through entities can actually make a payment and have the credit flow up to the owners of the pass-through business. The problem is that the Division of Taxation has kind of left it in a bad place, because if you have a tiered structure, they're not allowing that deduction to flow up and then be used again. They want each tier to pay its own, which is creating a burden, and also with the lack of additional guidance, creating a lot of confusion in the professional community. Any movement on that you've seen?
Ed, and I'm not an expert in that, but I know of the issue. And I would say that I've heard nothing about that since the issue was raised. You know, the Murphy administration is some constructive criticism of them is they don't move very fast. You know, when there are issues to be addressed, they are very slow to address the issues in many areas of the state. This is one of them. The creation of that initiative was great, but the implementation of it has not been, and that's been a sort of a characteristic of the Murphy administration from day one. What they put in place sounds good, but then the implementation of it never really maximizes what the intended benefit is. And I think here's a case in point. But the answer to your question is I haven't heard anybody working on correcting the issues that are out there.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Looking around. Anyone else? Do we see anyone on the other screens? I can't see all the screens.
Chris,
Yes, Donna, go ahead.
I put something in the chat. Tom, you mentioned sending a letter of praise to some legislators for some pro-business bills. Can you speak to some of the specifics of those bills? Like what do they cover?
Many things. One is the proposed legislation to provide some level of grants and loans to businesses that right now is at the $300 million level. There's some legislation that is going to provide tax credits for companies that hire unemployed workers. Those credits were not in place before. We thank them for the new tax incentive program that was put in place about 2 months ago, which provides more assistance tax-wise, tax credits for companies to expand and come to New Jersey or stay in New Jersey and expand and invest in historic and brownfields areas. Those are just a couple of the things that have been proposed. There's some bills that provide direct assistance to the restaurant industry. There are bills that provide the ability of local governments to allow retail stores to expand to provide more outdoor usage. There's all kinds of things like that. But the fact is that prior to 3 or 4 months ago, there were no pro-business bills. And now all of a sudden, a lot of the legislators, and again, I go back to the fact that this is an election year, not only for the governor, but also for the Assembly and the Senate. There's also a lot of these bills that are coming forward that I would put in the category of common sense. They just make sense for business. It isn't going to cost the state a lot of money, but it's going to enhance the ability for businesses to operate profitably and expand. So we're going to, when we put forward some of these suggestions from our alliance group, we're not going to ask for the world. We're going to ask for some common sense things that can be doable in the short term. And I think that's what we need is we need some recent and current successes just to start to show that things can move forward, give people not only the financial confidence that things are going to get better, but just psychologically to show the business community that the legislature really cares about them. That's as big an issue as anything, is that psychological boost.
And Don, as Tom had shared, our chamber had signed on, so we'll be happy to share a copy of the bill or the letter, that was sent with you. I'll send that over.
Thank you.
Other questions? Looking in the chat real quick. Any other
Hey,
questions?
Chris, if you don't mind, I was just going to add something to what Tom mentioned. The Senate and Assembly voted last week on a lot of the bills that Tom talked about. Specifically, there was a 6-bill package that appropriates several millions of dollars to EDA, both in support of business and nonprofits, to child care centers, to arts and cultural organizations, micro businesses, and as Tom said, to support the food and beverage establishments, as well as to support our food banks as well. So that's the first phase of funding. And I know We've also testified on the budget already 2 weeks ago before the Assembly and Senate and asked for more funding on behalf of the business community. So certainly we'll probably see more within the budget going into the months of May and June when they have to finalize this FY22 state budget. So I just wanted to add that. Thanks.
Hey,
Thank you,
Chris, and
Michael.
two things I just want to say for the people in the hospitality industry and people in the entertainment industry. Two things in the American Rescue Package that you should really look into. There's a $28.6 billion pot of money, grant money through the SBA for restaurants, direct grants to the restaurant industry that is available. And there's something called the Shuttered Venue Operators Bill that also provides grants to entertainment venues, music halls, theaters, things like that, that is available. Those are direct grants that are two big parts of the American Rescue Plan. So any of your members in those industries should absolutely make sure they understand the availability of that money and apply quickly for it, because it's grants, not loans, and it's directly from the SBA, and there are some big dollars at stake here.
Well, Tom, I want to thank you on behalf of the Chamber for joining us here this morning. We really appreciate you sharing with us. And again, we appreciate you and Michael and the entire team working with our chambers and our business community to advocate on so many positions. So thank you so much. And we're going to move into our next portion of our program. I know, Tom, you had to jump off to another program, but thank you again. Going to turn things over to Jeffrey Weinstein, who is the chair of the Hunterdon County Chamber of Commerce Board. Want to thank many of our board members who are on this morning. It has truly been a year of pivot, a year of challenges, but also a year of opportunity. So I want to just say, on behalf of the Chamber membership, to Jeffrey and the board, we thank you for all of your leadership and perseverance in guiding the Chamber and moving the Chamber and our business community forward. So thank you, Jeffrey.
So I just want to take a few minutes and thank a number of people. First, Tom, I really want to thank you for what I felt were very encouraging words. I think that our state is in a position to move forward and move forward strongly, and people such as you advocating for us really helps.
Thank you.
I also want to take the time to thank a couple of longtime board members. I don't think they're on this morning, but they've recently retired, Casey from Exxon and Bruce from the YMCA. We really appreciate the service that they've given both the board and our county. I also want to thank Chris, because without Chris and his leadership this past year, he really became the chamber. It's great that we've been able to bring people like Anna back, but for most of this year, Chris was it. And it wasn't just his leadership, it was his hard work that kept us going. So Chris, thank you very much for everything you've done for us. I want to thank the rest of the board. As hard as businesses have been hit and individuals been hit, the board has stepped up and has been very involved this past year. I also want to take an opportunity to point out one of our board members. Some of you might have read the article recently about Jim and Crown Plaza. I think Jim epitomizes what businesses and individuals in Hunterdon do in terms of stepping up and helping others. When he had a competitor that had a disaster that could have put him out of business, Jim stepped up and helped that individual. That's what Hunterdon County is about, and that's what our board members are about. So Jim, I know you weren't expecting this. I really want to thank you for what you did. And that's it.
Well, thank you again, Jeffrey. And I'm going to just share over the screen again and just give a little update on 2020. Some of the quick highlights. This is going to be a very brief presentation. Everybody will be receiving notification today of our annual report that'll be going out digitally, so there'll be far more details in there. But just a real brief overview of 2020, a year in review. Hard to believe, January of 2020, our board had spent the better part of a year prior in 2019 putting together our strategic plan. And that was a document that kind of set a direction for the next 2 to 3 years. We moved into February. We had our economic forecast luncheon, great turnout up at Stanton Ridge. And then we had our annual meeting. Last Friday in February, we had close to 200 attendees at that annual meeting up at the Ryland Inn. And it was a great evening. And literally within days, as we moved into March, the world changed. It changed for all of us. Again, we can't thank enough the many organizations like Hunterdon Healthcare that stepped up, our Department of Health here in Hunterdon County, our Department of Emergency Management. We actually hosted right away at the outset of the pandemic, or what we saw coming, right on the horizon, a briefing for the business community. And we had it here at the chamber. It was still an in-person event, and we broadcasted that. We had Dr. Crosswimmer, the Chief Medical Officer, Karen DeMarco, the head of the health department, and Braden Fay from OEM, kind of giving an overview. And that was the beginning of what became a year of information, webinars and seminars, and pushing things out to really help the business community navigate. This year, the Chamber celebrates our 105th anniversary. And when you look back on our wonderful history here in the county, we, like other chambers, but particularly here in Hunterdon, have really done a phenomenal job through the decades in keeping information out to our business community. We pivoted into the world of technology. Here we are still a little over a year later, and we're on the Zoom platform. We started to put together those resources. There was an inundation, I call it an avalanche of business information, working in partnership with the Hunterdon County Office of Economic Development. I want to thank Mark Salick. He's on the line with us this morning. We put together a business resource page, a COVID-19 page that continues to this day, trying to cull through that information weekly. Probably initially it was several times a week. We continue to this day to send out briefings. One went out yesterday on some of the programs that Tom just talked about in terms of the resources and grants and loans and ways to navigate. We launched a special series in March right away on Hunterdon Chamber Radio, bringing in experts to kind of help businesses understand those issues and face those challenges. By April, we had to figure out, like all of you did with your businesses and organizations, what was going to be that new direction. And we started to move forward again with webinars. We expanded out on social media, things that we launched. Again, some of the highlights, we launched a Hunterdon County Community Calendar so that folks could put up information about their businesses and their organizations, things that they were doing virtually. We launched what today is still a very successful Restaurant Blitz, our Facebook page on that. The Hunterdon County Restaurant Blitz still has well over 5,000, active visitors, probably sometimes 10, 20 posts a day, trying to support that restaurant industry through this, very challenging time. One of the early ons was the Chamber pulled together meetings of our local business organizations. That included the Highbridge Business Group, the Clinton Guild. I want to thank Paul Muir, he's on the call, the president of the Guild, the Flemington Community Partnership, the Lambertville Chamber of Commerce, the Frenchtown Business and Professional Group, and the Milford Merchants, along with the Office of Economic Development. We were speaking sometimes weekly. We still continue to meet and exchange ideas and pass through information. And it was a great opportunity, again, to connect the different constituencies within our membership base. We, as Tom shared, very quickly became part of a few alliances, the New Jersey Business Alliance, and continue to be active with them and the New Jersey Chamber Alliance. Again, trying to advocate and take our role in terms of our mantra, the voice of business, very seriously, and push that information out. By mid-year, the Chamber Board put together an economic recovery task force, and that task force has been charged really with long-term strategies and continues to meet. Jim Robinson, want to thank him. He's been the chair of our task force. Out of that, in partnership with our sister organization, the Hunterdon County Chamber of Commerce Foundation, we founded an economic recovery fund. And that's something we're continuing to work on. We have raised thousands of dollars thus far in partnership with some of our local organizations and have granted those monies directly back as direct assistance to businesses. As Tom shared, and we know very well through the surveys and interactions with our membership, that access to capital is critical. And really want to thank the Clinton Guild. They were one organization in particular that stepped up and worked with us, and there was monies raised as well. for the Chamber Foundation and our Center for Business and Entrepreneurship that enabled us to start to provide some direct programming. Well, we continued with chamber events, and we were able to have our Women's Leadership Summit that went virtual last year. Hard to believe by October, it was almost a normal day. Over 80 folks participated in our annual golf classic down at Heron Glen, and safely and enjoyed the beautiful weather, and we're out and about and supporting not only the chamber, but being able to bring back those personal in-person connections. We pivoted our virtual business expo. I want to thank Randy Block and Richard Hall and many others on that committee. Floyd Stafford, I think, is on the call. The expo, which has been a time-honored tradition that really brings together truly that cross-section of the business community, couldn't happen in person with the restrictions. So we switched over to a virtual platform for 2 months, and we promoted those exhibitors through social media and other means. And if that wasn't enough, the almost 100-year-old tradition of the Hunterdon Holiday Parade just couldn't happen, but we could not see it not happen in some form. So we banded together with first responders in the county and put on the Hunterdon Holiday Motorcade. And we had, I think I looked this morning real quick, over 12,000 views of that videoed presentation. That really was a tribute to the first line responders in the county, all of our healthcare workers, everybody that responded to assist us during that very challenging time in 2020 and continues. So here we sit, 2021, it becomes a year of possibilities. Our chamber board just had a strategic session about a month ago. We are looking over the next few months through our strategic planning committee to reaffirm now some of the items within our plan. And by June, we'll be sharing some of those benchmarks and milestones that we're going to address over the next 2 years. One of the primary items we continue to look at, and that's a recommitment to our mission. At the end of the day, that is truly what the Chamber of Commerce was founded on. We are a mission-driven organization with a purpose to enhance this economic climate. What makes Hunterdon great are all of the many organizations that are on here, the great communities, the great county. But without a strong economy and a business community, we don't have jobs. We don't have the ability to have our downtowns flourish. We don't have a quality of life. All the things that we love, enjoy, and want to prosper in Hunterdon. So our mission as an organization is just critical. And as we look at that mission, we look through the lens of all the programs and initiatives that we sponsor. Just a few highlights moving forward. We are going to continue to focus very strongly, and I invite anyone on the call, if you're not involved or committed, now's the time. We would love to have you active on one of our 20+ committees. Our economic recovery efforts with the task force, and as I mentioned, the Economic Recovery Fund is going to continue in earnest. We really hope to expand that out in the month of April. We are in this window where businesses are going to still continue to struggle. And you heard that staggering number Tom said statewide, over 1/3 of our small businesses have closed. And we want to look and see what we can do and engage the entire community in Hunterdon around that fund and those resources. We'll continue to expand our social media, our webinars, our content, and we're working on a very neat initiative that'll get underway in April. And we're partnering with the Small Business Development Center up at Raritan Valley, along with the Workforce Development Center. And we're going to start to provide some technical assistance, especially for our restaurants around those funds and those grants. So more to come on that, and we will continue the good work that's underway. As a chamber, our advocacy continues. I want to thank Bill Flahive, the chair of our Business and Government Committee, Jim Robinson, again, the co-chair of our ELCs, the Employer Committee Breakfasts. We will continue to bring those issues forth, work with the alliances at hand. A tremendous win. We have been involved for the last 10 years advocating for many projects here in this county locally, one of which had been the Courthouse Square, which just recently, a week ago, received final approval. And we'll start to see that construction here in the county seat get underway in earnest. And that will be a catalyst. It'll be a driver. Our partnership with the Flemington Community Partnership and our involvement with the Economic Development Office on the Opportunity Zone grant creates not only lasting consequences for Flemington, but it sends a message into the region, into the commercial market that we are open for business. And we'll continue to provide those critical issues and advocate as well. We've got a great program coming up in April, how you as employers can look at the cannabis and the legalization and how that's going to affect the workplace. So these are many things that are in the works. Finally, we're very excited. Our sister organization, again, the Hunterdon County Chamber of Commerce Foundation, I have to thank all of those board members, have worked tirelessly for the last 5 years on this project. And the project was really the creation of the Center for Business and Entrepreneurship. It happened to land in a physical location, which is our headquarters here at 119. An incredible restoration on this building was completed last year. Much perseverance on the foundation board to create what really was that vision. And we were able to finish just in time for the pandemic. The physical space on the center, but close to 10,000 square feet sits ready now. And we're going to be opening those doors up in the next several weeks to organizations and groups and our own training. I have to thank Unity Bank, our presenting sponsor on this program. They have persevered all along. Rosemary is on the call, and we're very excited. The center has done our webinars and programming. We just sponsored a rebuild program and workshop for businesses. There's much more to come in terms of the center, and we really hope now with the indoor and outdoor gatherings that we are going to have a real celebration this spring, for the center, and an opportunity to showcase, all that's in store for the next years to come. We see the center's vision strengthening and allowing businesses to have a place in collaboration with many organizations, their particular businesses to expand, because we know the best use of economic development dollars is investing in a workforce. And if we can invest in our workforce, if we can strengthen our businesses that are here and have them grow by small margins, that really was the vision that got set forth by the foundation board in partnership with the chamber. Gosh, it probably goes back all in about 8 to 10 years ago. So we're really excited. And as we've heard, a lot of great possibilities. I can't thank enough our sponsors. I want to thank them again. BKC Certified Public Accountants. I want to thank Ed and Joe and the entire team for all of their support, all that they do for our community. They're a great example of many of the businesses that are involved. Many of their employees and partners serve on boards throughout our county. So we thank them for all that they do. We want to thank again Hunterdon Healthcare, another presenting sponsor. It's not over, and the healthcare system has risen to that challenge. They've done incredible things over this last year beyond just all of the families and patients and individuals, and again the incredible staff and team. They were able to raise literally hundreds of thousands of dollars through their telethon to support 20 plus nonprofits that many are on the call here. So we thank them for all that they have done. Want to thank again our supporting sponsors, Diamond Nation, Gephardt and Kiefer, Health Quest, Prevention Resources, and our contributing sponsors, the Wolverton Inn, Bill Vince's Bridgewater Acura, and ShopRite. So again, I really want to take this opportunity to thank all of you once again as members of the Hunterdon County Chamber of Commerce, as members of our business community, for all that you have done to help support us as an organization. Invite you, this is the challenge, if you're not involved, to step up and get involved. So many of you are, and I know I've missed that opportunity to thank you all, but again, thank you for those that have stepped up already, serve on our committee, serve on our board, and really do appreciate everything. We have a couple things, as I mentioned, going out today. It'll be our distribution of our annual report, a little more detail on the items that I covered. And then finally, we have an opportunity now through tomorrow at 5 o'clock to go on and bid on our silent auction. We've pushed that out on social media and the like. We've got some great items. Want to thank, here's one of the little items there. It's right behind me. Got to thank Joanne Van Doren and the Hunterdon County Board of Agriculture. They've got an opportunity to bid on a great program to receive these beautiful daffodils. But a lot of other businesses stepped up to help support the cause, and know that your investment, any dollars that you give in terms of your membership or other support, really goes back to strengthen not only our chamber, but the stronger our chamber is, the stronger we can strengthen our business community. So again, I want to thank Jeffrey and thank everybody for joining us here this morning, and wish everyone all the best here in 2021 for a very prosperous year. So thank you.